everyone, welcome back to another episode of ScholarChitChat Podcast. If you're just coming across the podcast for the first time, welcome. This is ScholarChitChat Podcast, and here we're committed to bringing you relevant information, real stories, and practical advice to help you navigate your study abroad dream through scholarship and graduate school opportunities. So to our returning listeners, we're glad to have you back. So I'm your host for this episode, and my name is John, and we'll be talking about another scholarship. And as always, I'm not alone. I have a special guest with me. He's a recipient of this scholarship we'll be talking about today himself, so that you can get an idea of who he is and what he's doing. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, John. I'm Samuel Amadigwe from Nigeria. I studied statistics in my undergrad from the University of Calabar, Nigeria, and I got the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship at the University of Edinburgh to do my master's in operational research. I currently work as a data analyst in an energy firm in the UK. My research interest, I'm not really an academic person. I'm not interested in academics or furthering but my thesis was focused. In fact, my undergraduate thesis is kind of like an extension, because my undergraduate thesis was optimizing currencies, currency arbitrage using linear programming. So linear programming is a mathematical model. It's one of the foundational, models in operational research. So it's a mathematical model in operational research. So my master's thesis is still in that area, but then I developed and I formulated three echelon supply chain and solve that using a heuristic method, which is might sound a little bit weird, but is basically using a mathematical model to improve decision making. But in this case, the improvement is not like exact or I say optimal. It's just like an approximation of the best decision, because the problem is kind of too large, and trying to get an optimal solution will actually take ages. So I solved that with a kind of an approximation method, which is in this case a heuristic, specifically a heuristic model anyway. But so when I remember the name, I'll tell you guys. No
problem. So welcome. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so today we'll be talking about the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship at the University of Edinburgh. So, but before we start, can you just tell us how you first heard about this scholarship and then what motivated you to apply?
Yeah, sure. I think I just came across the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship at the University of Edinburgh. I think I just came across it online. It's on Twitter. Yeah, it was on Twitter. Although I've heard about it, they fund many, they are affiliated with many universities around the world. Yeah, so I've heard about it, but I'm not really interested in that, because they have specific courses listed. So none of those courses interest me. But I think I first come across that on Twitter, and what actually motivated me now to apply for this is because they included operational research as one of the courses they will fund at the University of Edinburgh, and I think it is very well aligned with what I studied in my undergrad, because I did a module Operational Research 1 and Operational Research 2 in my undergrad, so it's kind of related to what I did in my bachelor. So I feel like this is the best time and for me to apply, and because it's well aligned with my interests.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll just add on what you said. Yeah, so the Mastercard Foundation, it's not just at the University of Edinburgh. They have other universities that they are funding students, and we have an episode for the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship for African students at the University of Oxford. So our listeners, you might want to check that out and see if you could apply for the scholarship if you have what they want. Now, before I ask the next question, I just want to say, was this the first scholarship you applied for, or have you applied to other scholarships before this one?
No, this is not the first scholarship I applied to. I think I applied, I was majorly interested in United States, doing my master's in the US. So
Okay.
I applied to a couple of schools in the US, and I applied to Erasmus scholarship. I also applied to Swedish Institute scholarship, and I applied to Nowa Banach in Poland, and I think those are few that I could remember. But majorly I was interested in the United States, so I've applied to lots of schools in the US.
Okay, so like how long will you say you have been applying for scholarship, and what made you continue applying even with, I believe, maybe rejections that you got?
Okay, I started I think 2021. Yeah, I started 2021. So I in my final year, so that was when I started applying for scholarship, and I got a couple of rejection. Although I was accepted for one in the US. But it was partially funded anyway, so I mean I had money, I would have covered the remaining deficits. But I think if you read people's stories online, it's kind of it's not something that's easy to come by. So if you know what you want, then you can just keep trying, and each rejection will kind of improve on the application stronger. So the more rejection you get, the better your application, because you will definitely learn something from some of those rejections. So it will strengthen the next application. So it's just basically knowing what you want and, going for that, even if there are rejections. Then, because one day you definitely get accepted. So just knowing what you want.
Thank you very much for that. And I just asked that for people that are thinking of giving up. Yeah, so like you said, just keep pushing. And so let's come back to Mastercard Foundation Scholarship. For the benefit of those that are unfamiliar, could you tell us what the scholarship covers and if there was any additional expenses you had to manage yourself?
Yeah, sure, I can talk about that. I think the Mastercard Foundation scholarship at the University of Edinburgh is, I'll say, the best scholarship for anybody from sub-Saharan Africa, because once you get the scholarship, they take up every expenses that you need for you to arrive in Edinburgh. They take up everything from your from your passport if you don't have passport, to going for your visa appointment, doing your TB test, and all those stuff. So I don't think you have to spend any money. I didn't spend any money. So I didn't spend, because if you don't have passport, they'll provide that. If it requires you to write English proficiency test, they'll pay for that.
Okay.
So, and you don't have to, the school requires an application fee. So the Mastercard Foundation at the University of Edinburgh, you don't have to apply to the school first. So you have to apply to the scholarship. So when you get the scholarship, you will not apply for the school, but then as a recipient of the scholarship, the application fee will be waived for you, because Mastercard basically inform the school that this is a recipient of the scholarship, so it will be waived for you. So you don't have to pay anything. The only thing is you need to have your transcript. So aside that, I don't think I paid anything from my pocket after I won the scholarship. So there's nothing to pay.
So do you think there are instances where maybe someone can get the scholarship and not get admitted to the university?
No, I don't think so, because one of the eligibility criteria is you must graduate with a 2.1, which is the minimum GPA to be admitted in postgraduate program at the University of Edinburgh. So, the first thing is the eligibility test, because when you want to apply, you first of all submit your transcript, certificate, that's like the eligibility check. So if you did not graduate with 2, I think you'll be filtered out from that. So there is I've not seen anybody that. The only problem people have sometimes is passing the English proficiency, because some courses require, high score. So that's the problem people have sometimes. But Mastercard will not actually take the scholarship away from you if you did not pass for the first time. But you have to kind of prepare for that and make sure you pass. So before you get awarded, they've already checked your transcript and your courses, and they know that this person is eligible to be admitted in the University of Edinburgh. So I've not come across anybody that got that got the scholarship and did not get admission. As I previously mentioned, the only problem is the English proficiency test. That's where people found it hard to pass sometimes.
Okay, so thank you very much for that answer. That's good to know. So now talking about the application now, what are the selection criteria for the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship at University of Edinburgh, and then how can someone that wants to apply increase their chances of getting this scholarship?
The selection criteria, I mean, I don't know if you're asking about the eligibility criteria to apply first.
Yes.
So I mentioned that previously. You must graduate with a second class upper, which is a 2-1 from a Nigerian university or anywhere in Africa, but it must be a 2-1. That's the minimum GPA. Yeah, 2-1. I think other criteria are listed on the website because it must be from Africa. It must not be above 35 years at the time you commence your study. So it must not be above 35, and you must not have obtained a master's degree for applying. So if you already have a master's degree, you're not eligible to apply. And they prioritize women, they prioritize people that face kind of financial difficulties, or people that are displaced. And they actually prioritize those people. Then women, displaced person, people that are face any form of financial barrier or social barrier, and disabled. Yeah, they also prioritize disabled people. So I think like 70% of the scholarship goes to this category of people I mentioned. So but it's kind of listed on the website, the requirement.
Okay, thank you very much. So is work experience needed to apply for the Mastercard Foundation scholarship? Do you need to have a work experience, or you can just apply without work experience?
No, you don't need a work experience, because I was actually serving for those that are from Nigeria. I was doing my National Youth Service when I applied. Have I even started? I don't think I've started. I've not started when I applied for the scholarship. So basically I don't have any work experience. So I was doing my National Youth Service when I applied. So you can say I don't have any work experience. I mean, you can internship might be there, but it is not a requirement. They don't need work experience.
Yeah, so let's talk about the timeline now for the scholarship. Please just walk us through the timeline from when the application starts to when maybe acceptance or rejection letters will start going out.
The scholarship, I don't know if the date changed, but it opened around this September. Yeah, it's opened around September for people to, apply for I told you there's an eligibility kind of application. So, but I don't know if it has changed now, but I know during my time, there's kind of an eligibility application where you put your name, your age, your degree, and, the grade you graduated with. So that's kind of like the eligibility application. So if you meet that, maybe you graduated with 2-1 and you're less than 35 and you are from Africa, you've not had the master's before, then I think they'll send you the link to formally apply, where you have to answer some of those essay questions. I think that usually around between October, November, around that period. Yeah, October, November, and that's when you submit that. I submitted mine around September or first week of December or so. So if you submit that, and if your essay, it was like well written and it what interests them, and then you'll be selected to move to the interview stage. I mean, if you pass that stage, your essay was really very good and it aligned with what they want and what they want to hear, and then you move to the interview stage. The interview stage is I think that was around February, right? Yeah, around February, the next year. So after the interview stage, I think it's about 1 month before they send out the rejection acceptance, which is usually around end of March, April, just within that time frame. Within March and April, that's when they usually send out the either rejection or acceptance letter. Then from there you can, apply to the school and so on.
Thank you very much for that detailed answer. Now let's talk about the part that most scholarship applicants are scared of, and that's the essay. So I think the fact that you got the scholarship means that your essay was very good. So how many essays did you have to write for the scholarship?
So, I mentioned rejection is part of the game. So the more you apply, the more rejection you get, the stronger your essay. And, each rejection, you have to learn something,
Yeah.
So I've written a whole lot of essays because I've been applying to schools. So I've written a whole lot of essays. So when I moved to the formal application, I have to write my essays. It wasn't really that difficult for me because just I have to tweak some part of my essay, to fit in the question they asked. So basically, if it's your first time, you have to write a couple of essays and maybe ask people to review, and that's it. But since my own case, I'll say, was different because I already have, lots of essays that people have reviewed. Yeah, they've reviewed over and over again. So it wasn't really difficult. Even when I wrote that, I had to give a friend to review for me before I submit that. So the essay part is hardest part of the application because that's where most applicants get started out, kind of get their rejection. But if you are someone that has been applying for scholarship, I think it will not really be difficult for you, although it's still hard, right? Because you've got thousands of people competing for that. So it will still be kind of difficult, but I don't think it will take you much time to come up with a response if you've been applying for scholarship. But if it's your first time, I think it will take a couple of time to actually think about what you want to write and how you want to frame your story and that kind of stuff,
I agree with you. Yeah, so for the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship at the University of Edinburgh, did you just write only one essay for that scholarship, or you had to write maybe different essays for the particular scholarship?
It's one essay, but you've got a couple of questions to answer. Like during my time, I think we've got 5 questions to answer. So 5 questions to answer, and there's a word limit. So you'll be mindful of what to say, kind of focus on the question that you were asked. So it's just one essay, but it's kind of segmented. You have questions and then you have to answer them. So it's about 5 or 6 questions. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you remember the kind of questions that were asked and then how applicants can answer them. Maybe for people that want to start preparing their essay from now, it's like the question. Do they repeat the questions or the questions are different?
I didn't see the question before I applied. I didn't see the question before I applied. So, but I do think they don't repeat the question. But at the same time, it basically revolves around, telling your story, what interests you to apply for this scholarship, what motivated you to apply for this scholarship. And, Mastercard is big on climate change. And leadership. So, you have to the motivation first, and then leadership is have you impacted people, that transformational leadership, how you've impacted people, and then climate change. What have you been doing to mitigate climate change? Have you done any work around climate change, to help Africa, because it's really hitting Africa hard? So if you can think around your motivation, and you have to select a course. So what motivated you to apply for that course, and how do you think that course will help you to tackle climate change in Africa? So, or how do you think that course will help you in your future endeavor? How do you think that course will help you achieve that? So think around leadership. Have you been in leadership position? And it must not really be a big post. Have you been in a position where you make decisions that actually influence or that has a positive or good impact on people around you? And then what have you been doing to mitigate climate change? It must not be a big thing. You don't need to own a company that so small things can help. I mean, small things you do can actually help mitigate climate change. For example, in my case, I'm a road tractor. When I was in school, I participated in 1,000 tree planting. There was a time the governor mentioned that people should come out for 1,000 tree planting. Tree planting is one of the easiest means to mitigate climate change. So I participated in that. So in my essay I mentioned that I participated in that. So it must not really be a big thing. That was the only thing I know I did that actually towards the climate change. So yeah, just think around those three things I mentioned. I think the person will be good to go.
Thank you. So when you're talking about your leadership experience, must the experience you have be related to course of study, or it doesn't have to be related to course of study?
No, when I mentioned leadership experience, it must not really, have a position. It must not really be, have a post or a big post like the president of a faculty or those kind of stuff. But if you're in a position where you actually make decisions that can have effect on people, then that's leadership, and it must not be related to your course of study. Although if you can find a way to kind of link them together, that would be very nice, but it does not have to actually be related to your course of study. Because I studied mathematics, and the position I held did not involve mathematics, but I know it has effect on people. It's better, it improves someone's life or some people's life, so that's a leadership position.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. You mentioned earlier that there was an interview, so what kind of questions should applicants expect, and then how should they prepare for the interview based on your own experience? How the kind of questions you were asked, and then how
during the interview? You mean during the interview?
Yeah.
So during the interview, Mastercard will send, if you made it to the interview stage, they will inform you, and in that they will attach a file or a document on what the questions they want you to answer, right? So it's not like they ask random question or different. They already have questions they want you to answer. I think those questions, the answers can also be found in their website. If you go to the Mastercard Foundation at the University of Edinburgh, some of the answers to those questions can be found in the website. So it's still basically about motivation and how do you think you can build that community? How do you think you can build community in Edinburgh? What do you think you can do to build community among scholars? You understand, right? So it's around that community building, and how do you think you can utilize this opportunity in your studies, and what are you expecting? Your interest in when you're invited for interview, what I'll tell prospective applicants is to read the course you applied for. Go to the website at the University of Edinburgh. So check the website of that particular course you applied, because that time they are not asking you about why do you want this scholarship. You've already gotten to they love the essay, they know your motivation about the course you want to study and everything. So go to that course website and kind of study a whole lot of know some of the lecturers, the professors, know their research interests. Maybe you can find a professor that's actually doing a research in the field you want. Then you can read about that professor, read some of his his or her publications. Just know your course very well. Know the modules in your course, the modules in your discipline. What are the courses that are offered, and which one do you think will be most helpful for you to achieve your dream? So it's basically studying about the course first, then study about the Mastercard. I think they have a dedicated site. Study about what you would expect during your scholarship. There are some of the programs like the Transformation Leadership Program. You read about that. Read what the program is all about. I think Mastercard, they've got values, and they've got some values which they cherish. Then read about those values. How do they align to you as a person? And I think it's basically about that. Knowing your course very well, the course you want to study, mention people there, know some of the modules, then know about the Mastercard Foundation scholarship at Edinburgh. What do they value? What are the values that they cherish that aligns with you? And is there anything spectacular you like about them? Then also think around how you can build a very good community amongst the scholars. What do you think you can do to kind of bring people? People are coming from different parts of Africa, different culture and everything. So what do you think you can do to actually bring people together, and how do you think that can help improve the scholar's experience. So it's just basically thinking around those areas I mentioned.
Yeah, thank you very much for that very detailed answer. So let's talk about the English proficiency test now. Do you have like any tips you can share for students that how to prepare for writing the exam? Yeah, you mentioned that if they fail, they can have the opportunity. So how do they like try and write it that they pass at the first go?
Okay, during my time I took the IELTS. So there is also can take the TOEFL. But I think they've mandated students to take, is it the Oxford English exam or something like that? So I don't know how got that one is or how the structure. But I took the IELTS and I studied for I think 3 weeks or so, and I got 7.0. I don't think it's really difficult. But then you have the scholarship. Is it the English proficiency that will make us to because it's still conditional then. It's still conditional on you getting admission, and for you to get admission you need to pass that. So if you have the scholarship which has less than 1% acceptance, then you have to put in your best. Is English, you are taught in English, right? I mean, I did not do anything different from what people have been doing. I think what I did was just to study, go on YouTube. It was my first time. It was my first time to write the IELTS. So I went on YouTube and I started watching videos of tutors, English tutors. I started watching videos. I went online and downloaded some free documents, free files that then I think I have a folder someone posted on S that contains kind of preparatory document on IELTS. So I spent time reading all those things, practicing. But for the 3 weeks I was just practicing every day, reading and watching videos on YouTube. And I don't think that's really a problem if one actually is determined. I've not seen, although people fail, some persons might actually fail at the first trial, but the second and third they will likely pass. So I don't think that's a problem. But if you fail and you probably cannot meet up to join them that year, they might, push yours to next year. But then you have to, what I usually tell you if you're in that situation is to try and use your own money to write the test. So use your own money, because I think Mastercard will pay like twice or so. So if they pay the first one you fail, they pay the second one you fail, then they will kind of take the scholarship away from you. Which is fair. I mean, it's fair to me.
They've tried.
They've tried actually. So I do tell people, if you fail the first one, maybe you cannot go that year. So try and prepare very well and use your money to write. I mean, Mastercard will not query if you use your money to write, to pay for the test. If you use your money to pay for the test and write, even if you write it 10 times before you pass, then they will not query you. So before the next year cohort, you already have your test, and it's valid for 2 years. Then you can submit and say, I'll have my test and I've passed. And I think they can still reimburse you if you pass. So there's nothing really there. If you have the scholarship, I think losing the scholarship because of English proficiency doesn't really make any sense. So you need to study and pass that.
I agree with what you said. Does the scholarship accommodate dependents?
The scholarship do, but the UK government don't accept dependents for masters. They don't accept dependents for masters. So I think people that came before the immigration policy changed came with their dependents. So I don't think Mastercard got issue with that. But then it's not up to them, because they have to abide, heed to the current immigration policy. So the current immigration policy in the United Kingdom does not allow one to come with his or her dependent for a master's program, unless it's master's by research or PhD, which is not the case.
Thank you very much. So after your studies, do you have any obligations or commitments like going back to your country after the scholarship?
No, I think that's entirely up to you, because Mastercard will provide you with a letter that they are not they're not forcing you, or they're not mandating you to go back to your country. If you want to go back, it's entirely up to you. Then if you want to apply for the graduate visa, then it's up to you. Yeah, some persons went back during my cohort. Some persons went back, and others are still in the country. Some have moved to other countries. So it's entirely up to the person.
Okay, interesting. Thank you very much for that answer. Now, to my favorite question on this podcast. What was your biggest cultural shock when you moved to the UK, and then how did you adjust academically and socially in a new country?
Yeah, cultural shock. There are lots of them. I don't even know the one that is biggest. First of all, the cold. It's Edinburgh is very cold. So immediately we landed and we went outside. Mastercard, they are there to welcome you anyway. But then you kind of feel it that you are entirely in a different place because the cold hits hard. So in terms of academy, I'll speak for myself. Operational research is not easy. It's not easy. I think it's the hardest among those courses listed. Is the hardest, and you do 6 courses per semester, and the semester is 11 weeks. So the course is it's entirely different. The way they teach here is entirely different from the way they teach in Africa. So you have to be it's very demanding, and then you have to put in a whole lot of effort. So those are some of the different teaching pattern and what is expected of the students. I think also in class you don't kind of call the way they do in Africa, kind of call your lecturer sir. So you call your lecturer by his or her name, and you ask questions. There is no stupid question here. So in class, any question you ask is considered a good question. So I think those are some of the culture when it comes to academic. What is expected of you here is different from what is expected of you in Africa. So you have to study. You have to actually know what is expected of you, and you have to know what is expected of you, and also the code. The code might traumatize you. When it gets to the spring also, then during the night, maybe around 9-10, it will still be very bright. So you kind of it will still be very bright, and I think during the winter around 3-4, it's very dark. So this kind of changes do affect people. Around 3 o'clock everywhere is dark. You feel like what's happening. So those are some of the things, but it's nothing. I think they will definitely adjust within a couple of months to arriving. So
I can only imagine.
It's the first day, and the buildings here, they are kind of similar. So they're kind of similar. So the first week, in fact, the first day we arrived, we went out to get food. So you have to study. You have to learn how to use the map. So we don't really know how to use the map. So it took us hours before we can get back to our. So you have to really learn how to use the map. So when you come, you have to learn how to use the map very well, because most places you don't know, but the maps, the Google map or Apple map, they are accurate here. So if you can use the map, I think you can go to anywhere. So for the buildings are just the same. You'll be seeing similar buildings and you'll be like, is this not my street? Then when you enter, it's not your street. So learning how to use the map will actually help you.
Thank you very much for that tip. The next question, from your perspective, what common mistakes do applicants make when applying, and then how can they avoid this mistake?
Okay. I think that's a very good question, because I reviewed some essays last year, and I think people don't actually answer the question, right? People don't answer the question. They ask you, what was your name? And you start saying, I studied this, I studied, whereas the question you are asked, you've not answered it. So there's a word limit. So I think the first thing is to answer the question before telling any other story. What is your name? My name is Samuel Amadigwe. you've answered that question. Then other things can, if you've not exhausted the word limit, you can add in other information that you feel necessary. So answer the question. That's tip number one. Make sure you answer the question you ask, because there's a question asked. Make sure you answer that. Tip number two, don't be emotional. I mean, people have passed through a lot. Yeah. I lost my elder sister while I was in school. I lost my best friend while I was in school the same year. So it was so depressing, and it's really impacted my study. But don't focus on what happened. Yeah, we know it's a very bad story, it's a sad story. You can just keep it in that this happened, but don't focus on that. Focus on how did you overcome that? You've had this problem. You actually want to motivate people. How did you overcome? Not actually telling your story and then someone will feel so sorry for you. No, the story might actually even affect the person. The person will be depressed. So you want to tell your story, say what happened, but then how did you overcome that? What did you do to overcome that? How did that affect you? And how did you actually manage that? So don't be too emotional. Say what happened to you, even though it's bad, but focus on how you overcome that situation and actually become successful. Then the third tip is, it must not actually, if you ask a question about maybe leadership or climate change, how you've worked in those areas, it must not actually be a big thing, right? As I said before, if you're in any position that you make decisions that actually impacts people, that is a leadership position. I think it must not be the president of your faculty or SUG president in the case of Nigeria for you to actually make decisions that pass. You can even be a captain of your team. That's a leadership position, and you make decisions that actually help your team to win the trophy. Those are leadership positions. So don't think like maybe the position, a course rep, that's a leadership position. Don't think that maybe the position you held was too small and you cannot put that as a leadership. No, don't do that. So small thing counts. And the fourth tip is, when it comes to climate change, you must not own a company that actually transform waste to renewables, or you must not own any of the sustainability company, or like small things you do matters. In my own case, I told you guys, I was involved in 1,000 tree planting, and everybody knows that tree planting is one of the easiest way to combat climate change. So I said that, I quantified that, and I said that I was involved in that, and I mentioned what I did. Fifth tip, quantify your achievement if it is quantifiable. I mentioned 1,000 tree planting. I didn't say tree planting. Maybe if it's one, then it doesn't make any sense. But 1,000 tree planting is, I've quantified that. So quantify your achievement. If it is quantifiable, quantify it. If you're a leader of 30 persons, say you led 30 persons, quantify your achievement. And I think those are some of the tips that I can. But the most important thing is to answer the question you ask. Don't start telling stories and then you forgot to answer the question, because there's a word limit. So you're not writing 100 pages. It might just be 300 words. So you have to utilize that very well. Right? So.
Thank you very much for those tips. I think they're very, very helpful. Yes. So I just want to try ask the last question. How has getting this scholarship changed the trajectory of your life?
Yeah, it has really changed out a lot. Edinburgh is I think the top 50 universities in the world, and so studying in such institution is without the Mastercard Foundation, I wouldn't have been. I can't afford that. You have to be honest. So studying in that institution, first of all, is you have a very good degree. It is valuable anywhere in the world, and you get the exposure. You are exposed to a whole lot of things, ranging from technology, and to lifestyle. So you get that exposure, and if you utilize that, you actually be the best version of yourself. You utilize that very well. So it has really changed. After the scholarship, you get job, you work in a company with different people, you learn a whole lot, you start learning and development. I think it has really changed a whole lot of things in my life, from the way you reason, what you study, the exposure, and how you think. All those inclusive. So it has positively changed things about me.
Thank you very much for sharing your journey with us. So now, finally, to the last question. So is there like any question that we didn't ask, but you think it was very important for prospective applicants to know?
I don't really think so, but I would just add, when choosing the course, there are a whole lot of courses listed. So during my time, I was kind of stuck in choosing. There's this course, data and inequality, and operational research. I know I fit in those two. Like, I know data and inequality. I study statistics, so I know a whole lot about data and how important data is in the society. And then I know I still fit in operational research, so it was kind of, which one do I go for? I was kind of between those two, but I finally decided to pick operational research because I feel like I can tell more story when it comes to operational research. My thesis was in operational research. I did 2 modules in operational research. You can see that in my transcripts, operational research 1 and operational research 2. And I've checked the module in that course in operational research. I can see I'm familiar with some of those courses. Like, for instance, people that want to choose operational research, like stochastic modeling, fundamentals of operational research, and Python program. I can see I'm familiar with that. I can say 1 or 2 things about those courses. So I know that I have more to tell when it comes to operational research. But when it comes to data and inequality, I might struggle a bit to tell my story. So what I did was to choose operational research. I choose a course that I can tell a whole lot about, and I can link my thesis. My thesis was in operational research. I can link my thesis to the course, so it's become easier for me to tell my story. But writing is very difficult, so it became easier for me to tell my story. And so I would advise scholars, go through the course. Don't feel like, oh, I like this one, feel like I can do this. No, find a course that you can tell your story very well. Find a course that align with what you studied, and you can easily link your undergraduates with that, or you can link your work experience with that. The more you have to say about the course, the easier it is for you to write. So if you imagine me choosing African and international development, I will not have anything to say. It will be difficult for me to write. Where do I want to start at? So that's it. Find a course that best aligned with either your undergraduate degree, your thesis, or your work experience. So it will be very easy for you to tell your story. So tell your story. Yeah, that's it. And then again, study the website very well. Know the core values of Mastercard. What do they cherish? There are some stories. If you go through I spent time the website. I clicked all the link in the website. So if you go to the website, you see stories, people that that have passed through previous scholar. You see their story, how they feel, the scholarship helped them, what they did. Then some of those stories might resonate with you, right? So spend time in the website, studying the website. Spend time studying the Mastercard Foundation website. Spend time studying that. And then when you move to the interview stage, spend time studying your course website. During my time, in fact, when I was writing the essay, I even had to research some of the professors and check their publication. I know I mentioned 1 or 2 professors. So all those things is not something you have to actually study the course and find a way to go to the website and click the lecturers, know some of those lecturers, go to Google Scholar, check their their publication, their research. Does this align with what I want to do? Then when you do all those things, all those studies, you have a whole lot of information. But some people don't even know their course website, and they don't know, and they don't mention any module in their course. I know I mentioned some. They don't mention any module in their course. They just write it. No, you have to actually immerse yourself in the website, the Mastercard Foundation scholarship website, and also in your course website. I know a whole lot of people move today. They are invited to submit application. That's to write the essay. So that's where most people are being screened out. If you don't research very well, then it becomes a problem. So those are some of the tips that I can offer, right?
Thank you very much for your advice. I just want to add that if you don't research enough, it will show in your essay, and if you research a lot, it will also show in your essay.
Yes, you're right. I mean, I reviewed a couple last year. Some people they didn't talk about the course. They didn't mention anything. Yeah, that's my perspective anyway. But other persons might have different perspective of what works for them. But what I'm actually saying is not like just like a one way or this is the only thing that works. What I'm saying is what worked for me, because I applied once and I got it. I'm not saying I'm really good, but I know I put in effort to do that. So I'm just saying what worked for me. So other persons might have different story of worked for them. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you very much for that advice. Thank you for sharing your experience, also your insights and your journey with us. I'm sure your story will inspire someone listening. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for having me. I hope you do impact some people.
Yeah, it's true.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so to our listeners, we hope you found this episode helpful. Remember, opportunities like this can open doors to amazing experiences for you, and then a chance to make a difference in your community. So if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to share with someone also who dreams of studying abroad. And also drop your questions in the comment section. Most importantly, follow us for more scholarship stories, application tips, and conversations from scholars around the world. So yeah, until next time, keep learning, keep applying, and then who knows, a scholarship story could be